Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get you straight to the insights that matter.
Exactly.
Today, we are plunging into the escalating tensions in Europe. I mean, it feels like it's really heating up, particularly that volatile dance between NATO and Russia.
It really does. The headlines have been pretty intense lately.
Absolutely. If you've been scanning the headlines, you know this isn't just background chatter anymore. Just recently, July 21st, 2025, we saw NATO fighter jets from Poland, Sweden, Romania, Italy.
A multinational response.
Yeah, scrambling in a coordinated response to a large-scale Russian aerial assault on Ukraine. And even before that, Finland, one of NATO's newest members.
Right, important context there.
They had to summon Russian diplomats, not once, but twice, just in June, over airspace violations, repeatedly.
Yeah, it signals a real pattern, doesn't it?
It really does. It's clear these aren't just, one-offs. They're pieces of a much larger and, frankly, more concerning puzzle. Our mission today is to move well beyond those headlines. We've pulled together a pretty comprehensive stack of sources for you. We've got detailed news reports, The Watch, Grants Pass Tribune, Newsweek.
Solid reporting there.
And then we've got in-depth analyses from, the big organizations, RAND Corporation, the European Leadership Network, the Russian International Affairs Council, even critical reports from the U.S. Helsinki Commission.
And that NATO transcript, too, right, gives a direct view.
Exactly. We've even got insights from a NATO video transcript to round things out.
Okay.
Our goal for this deep dive is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights from all this complex material.
Giving you that shortcut.
Right, a shortcut so you can be truly well-informed about the critical challenges facing NATO's eastern flank and this ongoing shadow war they talk about.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, but you'll walk away understanding not just what is happening, but really why it matters so profoundly to global stability and security.
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've been seeing this sort of cascade of concerning reports about Russian military aircraft, NATO's reactions. What specific patterns have been unfolding in the skies over NATO's borders recently?
Oh, what's truly striking, as you said, is the consistency and, frankly, the audacious nature of some of these incidents. Finland, like you mentioned, brand new NATO member, found itself having to call in Russian diplomats twice in June alone. Just June.
Twice. Wow.
Yeah, because of suspected airspace violations. Like on June 10th, there was a Russian military aircraft involved off the coast of Porvoo, southern Finland.
Okay.
But that wasn't, out of the blue. It followed an earlier incident, May 26th, same area, 2 military aircraft involved that time.
2? Okay.
And even before that, May 22nd, another 2 Russian aircraft suspected of violating Finnish airspace. So you see the cluster there.
That's quite a concentration just around Finland.
But it's broader than that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just Finland. Our sources show NATO officials see this clear, almost routine pattern. They call it high-risk behavior from Russian aircraft.
High-risk behavior, what does that actually mean in practice?
It's particularly common with jets flying out of Kaliningrad, Russia's exclave there.
Right, nestled between Poland and Lithuania.
Exactly. And what makes it high risk is these aircraft frequently turn off their transponders, the things that identify them. They don't file flight plans. And crucially, they don't talk to regional air traffic control.
So they're flying dark, essentially.
Pretty much. And it's not like it's an accident. NATO sees it as a deliberate choice that creates an immediate hazard. We saw the same pattern on May 21st, 2025, when Polish jets had to intercept a Russian Su-24 bomber over the Baltic Sea in international airspace, like a constant probing, testing reactions.
So clearly, this is way more than just a few isolated mistakes. It's a consistent, almost deliberate pattern of this high-risk behavior right along NATO's borders.
It feels like it goes beyond just testing airspace, doesn't it? What's the real underlying concern here? Why do these encounters, especially with transponders off, raise such significant alarms?
Right, and this is where these, seemingly technical details like no transponder, no flight plan, they escalate. They become a much broader strategic concern.
How so?
The primary worry for NATO allies, and this comes through in the RAND and European Leadership Network analyses, is the potential for accidental escalation, for things to get out of hand unintentionally.
Miscalculate.
Exactly. Miscalculation and destabilization. Just imagine the scenario.
Yeah.
You've got high-speed military jets, maybe drones too, some flying dark without identifying signals, operating really close to NATO territory.
Yeah. Even a small mistake, a sudden unexpected maneuver, a communication breakdown. especially when there are large-scale operations going on nearby. It could spiral really fast into something much bigger, much more dangerous than anyone intended.
And the Baltic Sea region seems particularly tense.
It is. It's on high alert. And it's not just the air incidents. There's been a string of unexplained outages, power cables, telecom links, gas pipelines in that area since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine started in 2022.
Right, I remember reading about those.
So that just compounds the unease. It makes every aerial incident feel like it carries this heavier weight of risk, you know?
That's a worrying picture, that constant aerial pressure and the very real risk of miscalculation. But our sources point to something maybe even more unsettling. Beyond these direct military provocations, Russia is apparently engaged in what's described as a covert shadow war against NATO. That sounds quite dramatic. What does that actually mean? What tactics are involved?
It is dramatic, and it's a really critical concept to get our heads around. This shadow war, it's essentially Russia's playbook for hybrid warfare.
Hybrid warfare.
Yeah, it covers tactics that operate, and this is the key phrase, below the threshold of war.
Below the threshold.
Ooh, well,
So not triggering an actual military fight.
precisely. They're designed to destabilize, to distress, to deter the alliance, but without provoking that Article 5 response, that direct military comeback. Think of it like a constant campaign of digital sabotage, misinformation, maybe covert influence ops. Things that chip away at stability but are hard to pin down, hard to blame definitively, hard to retaliate against conventionally.
Insidious almost.
Very. And what's really chilling, according to the sources, is that these campaigns, these sabotage efforts across North America and Europe, they've really accelerated since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
Accelerated. Is there a sense of the scale here?
There is. The U.S. Helsinki Commission, they've actually mapped nearly 150 such operations attributed to Russia, or suspected to be Russia, within NATO territory just since 2022.
150. Wow. That's staggering. What kind of operations are we talking about?
It's incredibly diverse. They fall into roughly 4 main buckets. First, critical infrastructure attacks, think sabotage targeting power cables, telecom links, gas pipelines, especially like we mentioned in the Baltic Sea region.
Okay, physical infrastructure.
Right. Second, actual violence campaigns. Things like attempted assassinations, maybe terrorism plots, real-world physical threats.
Serious stuff.
Then third, something called weaponized migration, basically. Deliberately using migration flows to destabilize bordering nations.
Using people as a weapon.
Effectively, yes. And fourth, the one maybe we hear more about. Election interference and sophisticated information campaigns designed to disrupt democratic governance, so discord within allied countries.
So it's a really broad spectrum of activity.
It is. And as the sources emphasize, these efforts, taken together, pose real threats to society and democratic governance. They hit right at the foundations and core mission of NATO. It's such a challenge because of that deniability factor you mentioned.
So it's this strategic effort to undermine the alliance without, kicking off a conventional war. Operating right in that gray zone below the threshold. It is insidious. So how is NATO, an alliance basically founded to counter exactly this kind of aggression, how is it adapting its defenses to these multifaceted, often deniable threats? It must be a huge challenge.
It absolutely is, and it connects back to what we were saying earlier. This isn't just about what's happening in the air. It's part of a much bigger strategic game.
Right.
NATO's response isn't just, scrambling jets. It's about developing a really comprehensive strategy for deterrence and readiness that covers multiple domains.
Not just air and sea.
No, land, sea, air, cyber, space, all of it. The alliance is definitely reinforcing its traditional defenses, that's happening, but crucially, it's also working hard on developing new, more sophisticated ways to identify and counter these less conventional but equally destabilizing threats.
So trying to get ahead of the shadow war tactics, too.
Exactly. They understand that to defend effectively against this kind of thing, they need to address both the overt military moves and the covert, often deniable stuff. It really demands a holistic approach to security now.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for NATO's day-to-day operational posture, their readiness? How is the alliance responding on the ground or in the air to these persistent challenges, from the daily airspace violations to those deeper covert ops?
Well, NATO's response is, as you'd expect, multifaceted, and they are operating at a really heightened state of vigilance. Constantly, 24/7.
Okay.
So first, on the airspace monitoring and interceptions, their air forces are literally on watch 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Keeping the skies safe is job one.
Always watching.
Always. And a key piece of this is their quick reaction alert status, QRA.
Yeah.
They have fighter jets kept on permanent QRA at over 32 NATO air bases.
And QRA means?
It means pilots have just 15 minutes. 15 minutes to get ready and take off when they get the call. Imagine that level of readiness.
15 minutes. That's incredibly fast.
It has to be. And the scramble procedure itself is very precise. Civilian or military radars detect an aircraft that's not transmitting its ID code.
Flying dark again.
Right. Air traffic controllers try to make contact.
Yeah.
If that fails, commanders scramble the QRA jets for visual identification. And this is all coordinated through NATO's two big combined air operations centers, the CAOCs, one in Spain, one in Germany.
A well-oiled machine, hopefully.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And we saw this system kick into action on July 21st, remember? Those jets from Poland, Sweden, Romania, Italy, deployed in response to that big Russian assault on Ukraine.
Right, you mentioned that earlier.
And it's worth noting, Polish airspace wasn't actually violated in that specific incident, but those flights were crucial precautionary steps, part of what they call integrated air policing missions across the whole alliance.
So air defense is clearly paramount. What else?
Well, beyond the jets, there's a strong diplomatic element. We talked about Finland repeatedly summoning Russian officials over the airspace violations.
Yeah, making it public.
Exactly. That's a clear public state-level response to these provocations. And then militarily, on the ground and sea, NATO has significantly boosted its presence in the Baltic Sea region since 2022.
More ships, more planes.
Definitely more frigates, more aircraft, and interestingly, more naval drones, too, specifically to deter and detect threats in that very sensitive area.
Driven by concerns about potential attacks.
Yes, there are increasing warnings coming from NATO officials that Moscow could potentially attack alliance members. That provides the constant push for enhanced deterrence. And alongside that, you see the Nordic nations embracing these total defense strategies.
Total defense, what does that involve?
It's not just about the military. It involves getting the whole of society ready, civilian infrastructure, the population prepared for potential threats, resilience across the board.
Okay.
And underpinning all this, crucially, NATO allies are agreeing to significant boosts in defense spending,
Right.
collectively recognizing they need to invest more to meet this evolving Russian threat. It's about showing a strong, unified front.
It certainly sounds like NATO is operating in an unprecedented state of vigilance, really trying to adapt. But even with all these adaptations, the increased spending, are there still critical vulnerabilities, things that keep commanders up at night? And how does that profound lack of trust between NATO and Russia affect the ability to manage this whole high-stakes situation without, an accidental blow-up?
Yeah, that's the absolute crux of it, isn't it? For all the robust defense, all the readiness, the core challenge remains, how do you prevent miscalculation when trust is, as our sources put it, just at rock bottom?
Yeah.
And the sources do reveal that some fundamental vulnerabilities persist. It forces this really difficult but absolutely crucial balancing act between deterrence showing strength and dialogue keeping lines open.
Deterrence and dialogue often seems contradictory.
It can feel that way. It's not enough just to be strong. You also have to make sure that strength isn't misinterpreted in a way that leads to an unintended, potentially devastating conflict.
So despite all these measures, the vigilance, the spending, what are NATO's key vulnerabilities, according to the sources we looked at? And what actual solutions or approaches are being proposed to navigate this ongoing, dangerous confrontation, especially when trust is so thin?
Well, one of the starkest vulnerabilities comes from that RAND Corporation wargaming study we mentioned.
Right, the RAND study. What did it find?
It reached a pretty grim conclusion that NATO, I'm quoting here as presently postured, cannot successfully defend the Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, against a rapid Russian invasion.
Cannot defend them successfully.
Not against a rapid invasion, as things stand. The study found through multiple simulations, it took Russian forces a maximum of 60 hours to reach the outskirts of Tallinn and Riga.
60 hours.
Yeah.
2.5 days.
Exactly, 60 hours. That is an alarmingly short time frame, and it would leave NATO, as the study says, with limited undesirable options once that invasion was underway. Basically a fait accompli.
That's sobering.
Yeah.
So what's the proposed solution from RAND?
They recommend a specific military fix. A force of about 7 brigades, including 3 heavy armored brigades, properly supported by air power, artillery, other enablers, positioned and ready to fight right at the start of any hostilities.
So troops on the ground, ready immediately.
Yes, enough credible force to prevent that rapid overrun. The study notes this posture, while, quote, not inexpensive, is deemed affordable when you weigh it against the catastrophic consequences of failing to defend Allied territory.
Okay, so that's a major conventional military vulnerability. What else?
Beyond the military hardware and troop numbers, there's that profound strategic vulnerability we keep touching on, the profound loss of trust and these diametrically opposed worldviews between Russia and NATO countries.
The communication breakdown?
Exactly. Since 2014, the level of contact between NATO and Russia has just drastically reduced. Channels that do exist, like the NATO-Russia Council, the NRC, they're described as being of limited effectiveness right now. We actually have, according to the sources, less dialogue now than in the later stages of the Cold War.
Less dialogue than during the Cold War. That's incredible.
It is. And that lack of reliable communication, especially in a crisis, that's a massive vulnerability in itself.
So how do you fix that? Or at least manage it?
Well, there's a crucial report from the European Leadership Network working with the Russian International Affairs Council that proposes a very pragmatic approach. They call it a basic dialogue and stabilization menu for immediate action.
Basic dialogue. Sounds like lowering the bar.
It's about realism. It isn't aiming for friendship right now, but focusing on how to manage this adversarial relationship more safely, reducing risks.
Okay, what's on the menu?
They suggest things like more useful dialogue through regular, predictable NRC meetings, say bi-monthly or quarterly at the ambassadorial level, and making sure there's substantial Russian representation at NATO so both sides are actually in the room consistently.
Just getting people talking regularly.
Basically, yes. They also strongly emphasize multiplying the military-to-military communication channels, like setting up direct talks between the chairman of NATO's military committee and the Russian chief of general staff.
Mil-to-mil talks. Why is that so important?
It's about building basic understanding and, really critically, some personal trust, or at least professional familiarity, among the military leaders who would be involved in managing a crisis, reducing the chance of misinterpreting signals.
Makes sense. Anything else?
Yeah. They propose using the existing NATO-Russia hotline specifically for serious cyber incidents to try and prevent false attribution, stop things escalating because someone thinks they were attacked by someone else when maybe they weren't, or it was a third party. Recognizing cyber is a huge new flashpoint.
Using old tools for new threats.
Exactly. And they also suggest running tabletop exercises focused just on managing hazardous air incidents, bringing experts together, maybe even retired military folks, to develop shared procedures, shared understanding for how to handle those close calls in the air we talked about.
So on one hand, you've got this stark military vulnerability in the Baltics that needs a big physical fix, more troops, more armor. And on the other hand, this profound breakdown of trust that needs these careful step-by-step efforts to just get basic communication going again. It really is a delicate, almost contradictory balance, isn't it? Shoring up defenses to deter while simultaneously trying to keep vital communication lines open in this atmosphere of deep mistrust.
It absolutely is. It highlights the incredible complexity of managing a confrontation between major global powers in the 21st century.
So zooming out, what's the ultimate goal here with this dialogue track, if restoring trust isn't realistic right now?
Yeah, exactly. The goal isn't necessarily restoring full trust, maybe not even getting back to business as usual. It's more about making an unavoidable adversarial relationship more stable and less potentially costly for everyone involved.
Managing the rivalry safely.
Precisely. As the sources imply, it requires almost like dusting off some Cold War know-how, but combining it with new wisdom for crisis management, especially for these emerging domains like cyber. It's all about preventing miscalculation from spiraling into a devastating conflict, focusing on risk management, not aiming for some grand diplomatic breakthrough overnight.
And the report mentioned NATO clarifying no business as usual.
Right. The suggestion is that NATO should be clearer about what that phrase actually means in practice to potentially open up space for necessary business that needs to be done, recognizing that some level of engagement, even with an adversary, is vital for stability.
Interesting. So basic stability first.
That's the immediate focus. The report does mention more ambitious ideas for when the political climate might improve, things like higher-level NRC meetings, talking about military doctrines, maybe refreshing the rules of the road for the relationship, even considering zones of increased transparency or reduced military activity. But those are longer-term ideas. Right now, it's about the basics.
Wow. Okay, what a deep dive this has really been. We've covered that consistent, concerning pattern of Russian provocations, those high-risk airspace violations, that insidious, deniable hybrid shadow war targeting infrastructure, democracy, maybe even lives.
The complex threat picture.
Definitely. We've also seen NATO's really robust ongoing defensive posture and how it's adapting the 2047 air monitoring, those rapid QRA scrambles, the increased presence in the Baltics, significant defense spending boosts across the alliance.
NATO is responding, no question.
And finally, we've really unpacked this critical ongoing challenge, addressing those stark strategic vulnerabilities like the potential rapid overrun of the Baltics identified by RAND, while simultaneously trying to carefully manage these limited dialogue channels in an environment where trust is just fundamentally broken.
That tension between deterrence and dialogue is key.
It is. And understanding these multifaceted tensions, it isn't just for policymakers or generals. It's crucial for you, the listener, to really comprehend the current geopolitical landscape, the high stakes involved in just maintaining peace and stability on a global scale.
Because it affects everyone.
Absolutely. This isn't just happening over there. It impacts the fundamental security framework of our interconnected world. It affects everything from energy security to global supply chains.
It has real-world consequences.
It really does. So, as you reflect on everything we've discussed today, here's a provocative thought to maybe mull over. Given those lessons from the RAND war games and this ongoing shadow war, what is the true cost of just muddling through in a time of persistent geopolitical tension? And what responsibility do nations bear, not just to defend themselves, but to actively work to stabilize even adversarial relationships to prevent the unthinkable from happening?